Hello and welcome everyone. My name is Caroline Zamora and I'm the Chief Deputy County Clerk. Today we have a very exciting episode for you all, but before we get into that, I want to go ahead and introduce our team. Jacob is behind camera today, our producer and editor extraordinaire. We also have Cynthia Mendoza, our communications coordinator, along with Bernadine Caporal, our producer and researcher extraordinaire, doing amazing things for our team. And so I'm going to go ahead and hand this over to Bern. Bern's going to introduce our guest.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Today we have a special guest who I met at the Archives Bazaar.
That's right.
And it took his wife, Sharon, a bit of convincing of Dale to get him to come here. But I appreciate
Thank you,
so
Sharon.
much. Thank you, Sharon. He has a wealth of information on the area and ranches of Doña County and today's present-day White Sands Missile Range. Please welcome Mr. Dale Owens. And it's good to see you again. Thanks for joining us.
Well, it's my pleasure.
Thank you so much.
So, Mr. Owens, can you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself before we jump into the topic today?
Well, I don't know. I'll just soon jump in the topic, but I don't need. My grandfather was a medical doctor. He went to the University of Arkansas. And the governor of, this is in the 1890s, the governor of New Mexico asked him to come out and be a doctor in Cloudcroft, New Mexico. They did not have any doctors or medical personnel up there at the time. So he went up there and had quite a few interesting experiences. One time he came upon some cattle rustlers, and they were going to kill him. But they found out he was a medical doctor. And they, we might need your services sometime. And they said, if you keep quiet, we'll let you go. And so they let him go. And that's one of his experiences. Another experience was, let's see, that part down from Cloudcroft. What is that called?
Is it Ruidoso?
No. Anyway, a fellow had some alfalfa there. He was cutting. And his son thought, well, I'm going to get out there and get hunkered down in the alfalfa and scare him. Jump up and scare him. So, and those alfalfa things are like, just cutting. And so he jumped up and about had his feet cut off.
Oh, gosh.
And my grandfather, they called my grandfather there and said, he said, I'm going to have to amputate his legs. Back in those days, a doctor was a doctor, and they did everything. And so the father said, I'd rather he be dead than have his legs amputated. And so my grandfather went ahead and sewed his feet back on. That kid walked. Now, you think about it a minute. Today, they would have had a team of doctors and all kinds of things going on. And here he is. He sews those feet back on. That's how they had to be back in those days. And then
What was his name?
Dr. J.D. Love.
That was your grandfather.
Did you ever hear that name?
I did, yeah.
Where'd you hear that?
When I was researching,
Oh, did you?
he had the first medical on wheels, so to speak.
Yeah, he had the first civilian mobile hospital.
Wow.
They have him on the, what is it in El Paso, the DigiWall, I think they call it.
Okay.
Part of it. We can have a whole film on it, but anyway. Okay, where were we? And he was over there, and a cowboy came in from the San Andres on a little pony, rode across the basin there. And they needed help. My grandfather said, well, do you need to change a horse? No. He had one of those little tough Mustangs, and they took off and went across the desert. And in those days, the only thing they had was for anesthetics was laudanum. Let's see, laudanum and whiskey. That's the point of the whole thing. And as they were going across the desert there, that cowboy drank up most of the whiskey. But anyway, that's kind of where my grandfather got introduced to the San Andres Mountains. And he was in Conroe for a while, but then he moved to El Paso, Esleda. And while he was in El Paso, a ranch came up for sale up here in the San Andres Mountains. He knew the area and he loved it, you know. And so it came up for sale, and he went ahead and made a trade of a farm and some money, I think, and bought the ranch out here up in the San Andres Mountains. And so it's a love ranch, and he got elderly and turned the ranch over to my Uncle Fred Love and my mother, Cornelia Love Owen. Turned it over to them, and he went back to El Paso. But we had quite a time. Jess Isaacs was kind of the former owner of the ranch, and you may have heard of the Isaacs, I don't know. Jess Isaacs, and he was quite a character. He got the ranch from Jess Isaacs. Jess Isaacs was the head of the Selective Service here in Las Cruces for a while. And he had quite an interesting life himself. He went into Mexico after Pancho Villa with General Pershing. This is who my grandfather got the ranch from.
Wow.
And so he was the Selective Service head here. But he would, I talked to him at times. He told me I went lion hunting. He had a little pack of dogs and went lion hunting because the lions were killing his little colts and some of the calves. And he felt like they were more up there then than they are today, I think.
Yeah.
Those mountain lions. And he told me about hunting the mountain lions and so forth, and some of the interesting things about the ranch. And it's interesting, I don't know how it happened to him, but his arm was, he was shot in the arm. And it never healed up, the bone never came together. And, his arm was just like flop. And so he'd take the other hand to move that hand around. That was Jess Isaacs. Now, there's several Isaacs that were around up there, Emmett Isaacs and Bill Isaacs and Ollie Isaacs, and all of them had ranches up in there. But we got, I don't know by chance or what, a Jess Isaacs ranch. And he had his brother, Bill Isaacs, to the west of our ranch. He was our neighbor on the west. And Bill Isaacs, I talked to him many times. He's an old timer, and he was the first person on the scene when Pat Garrett was killed.
Wow.
I mean, the first non-participant
Yeah.
on the scene when Pat Garrett was killed. And I don't know whether y'all know much about that, but I'll give a little background, I guess. Wayne Brazell worked for W.W. Cox. You have the Coxes up there. Worked for W.W. Cox, and we had kind of a situation where Pat Garrett and W.W. Cox kind of got a little bit crosswise because Cox was out on the ranch with his hands, and he had a young man come in to the ranch house there. And he was staying there. It was just the women and children staying in that ranch house. And the young man was there, and Garrett heard he had a warrant out for him. So he went in there, and he didn't mess around, and Garrett just shot him dead.
Whoa.
Well, he shot him first shot, and the guy didn't kill him. He begged for mercy. And then he shot him a second shot, and he went through the window. And it was a kind of bad situation. There was women and children. It was all in front of women and children. And one of the women was pregnant, she had a miscarriage, and one of the boys there is named Hal Cox, and I got to know him pretty well, and he told me this story and some other interesting history facts about up in there. But W.W. Cox was his father, and a group of ranchers decided they were going to do Pat Garrett in. So they hired a hired killer. This is what happened. You won't hear that in Las Cruces. They've got a different story, I think, here. But they hired Jim Miller, who was the most heinous hired killer of the West. He probably killed 50 or more people. He killed his own grandparents when he was 10 years old.
Whoa.
Jim Miller killed his brother-in-law, and I mean, he was a bad guy. We have pictures of some of the things, and so he was hired. He came in, and they arranged a situation where, they wanted to get Pat Garrett, and Pat Garrett gambled a lot, and he got in debt, went broke, and so he rented some of his land to a fellow named Wayne Brazell. I don't know, maybe you've heard of him.
I have, yep.
Wayne, you heard of him?
I did.
And rented some land, which is on our ranch, that area, and he rented that land to Wayne Brazell to raise cows. Well, they wanted to get Pat Garrett upset, so they put goats on it. Pat Garrett hated goats. They just cleaned the land, and he became livid with anger and threatened to kill Wayne Brazell. So they decided to get hire this Jim Miller to come in and do in Pat Garrett. Well, Jim Miller, I don't know how Pat Garrett fell for it, but Jim Miller and his henchman, I can't remember his name right now, came in to buy the goats. They fixed it up to buy the goats, but they weren't really buying the goats. It was a big put on. They were supposed to be buying the goats. So Miller's henchman spent the night at Pat Garrett's ranch out there, which is just to the south of where our ranch is, and he spent the night, and he and Pat Garrett started in to arrange the sale of the goats. And Pat Garrett was relieved. We're getting rid of these goats, and so they started into Las Cruces to arrange the deal and all that. And they got to Oregon. Y'all know where
The little
Oregon,
city? Mm-hmm. Yep.
Oregon, and went into the store there. And they wanted to make Garrett angry to where he would say, "I'm going to kill you, Brazell." And they did. They went in there, and Brazell said, "I think I've changed my mind.
Oh, boy.
I'm not going to sell the goats." And Garrett he was shaken. He was livid. And he said, "I'm going to kill you if you don't sell those goats." And so Brazell says, "Okay, I'll sell them." And so they started down for Cruces. And they had a point arranged. Miller wasn't with them. He was sitting in a hotel room here in Las Cruces to build up an alibi. And so at the appointed time, they kind of arranged it. He went out there, and you can find this in books, Sonicsen's book and so forth. Somebody was sitting on top of one of those sandhills and was smoking on a horse. He was on a horse. And the Garrett and Brazell and Miller's henchman came down. Miller's henchman and Brazell were in a wagon. No, Garrett and the henchman for Miller was in the buckboard wagon, and Brazell was riding in the back on a horse. And so they came to a pointed spot, the assigned spot. And who was it? One of them said, "I need to relieve myself." And so they stopped. And here's Miller sitting on top of that hill out there, and he comes riding in because he's part of the deal. He's one of the ones buying the goats. And so Miller comes riding in and to where they are, and oh, hi, Jim, and all this kind of stuff. But he wasn't there to buy the goats. He was there to murder Garrett. And and maybe y'all have heard the story. I don't know. So Garrett was out there. I think they have a marker out.
They do, yeah.
Outside there, where Garrett was supposedly murdered, and so Garrett had to relieve himself. And so as he was relieving himself, Jim Miller comes right up behind him with a .45, shoots him in the back of the head, and then shoots him in the ribs as he's going down, and hands the gun to Wayne Brazell, because he can get away with it. Garrett's threatening him. No, it's self-defense. It's self-defense. And when you do that, and if he's declared self-defense, that's the end of the story. I mean, nobody's going to be
no trial,
no investigating, no nothing, you know.
Right.
And so they waited a while for Miller to get back to the hotel to continue his what shall we say?
Alibi,
yeah. And they continue his alibi, and my neighbor, Bill Isaacs, came up on the scene about then, and he looked it over, and they were talking, and he said to Wayne Brazell, "Wayne, I don't think you did it."
Wow.
You know. And he told me this. He told the story to me. He was the first one on the scene. Wayne, you didn't do this. But Wayne, yeah, I did. And so he went in and surrendered to Felipe Lucero, who was the sheriff at that time. You may have heard of Felipe Lucero. He had a place there next to ours. I can mention him in a minute. But he went in and surrendered to Felipe Lucero and turned in the handgun. And everybody, you know, what do you have? A kind of a trial, not a trial, but a hearing. And they said, okay, it was self-defense. You go on. And so he went on for a year. And I guess there's so much talk and everything that we need to have a trial. And they had the trial here in Las Cruces in A.B. Fall, and I can talk about him in a while. He had a mine on our ranch. You ever heard Teapot Dome scandal?
Yes.
You haven't?
I have it down.
He was behind it, Fall.
Really?
Yeah. He was the one that got convicted for it, the Teapot Dome scandal. But anyway, where were we?
They called it about a year later a trial?
Yeah.
Okay.
A year later a trial so they can, you know, well, let's ice this thing over. People are talking. They're saying Wayne Brazell didn't do it. Let's make it where he did it, and then it'll end it, which is exactly what they did.
They did.
A.B. Fall, I need to let you all talk some. A.B. Fall was the attorney here in Las Cruces. A trial lasted less than a day. This is Wayne Brazell's murder, supposedly was self-defense or murder. Lasted less than a day. The jury deliberated for 20 minutes.
20 minutes.
20 minutes. And found him innocent because of self-defense. I mean, it was all fixed. Well, he threatened to kill him up there in Oregon, you know, and threatened to kill him at another time. And so Wayne Brazell gets off, and everybody's saying, well, Wayne Brazell killed him, and what benefit would it be for somebody else to have killed him? I mean, other than Wayne Brazell, who was ranch hand out there with the Coxes, and he was a ranch hand, and he got the guys that did it. You might say he took the rap for them, and they gave him probably money and all kinds of stuff, and they moved him to Arizona so he couldn't talk.
Oh, gosh.
And anyway, getting back to the murder, you have Jim Miller, and I can't think of that fella's name, but anyway, after the murder, they got on a train and went up to Oklahoma, and Jim Miller murdered another sheriff up in Ada, Oklahoma. And he always would get off. He'd threaten a jury member, you know.
Wow.
And I think killed a couple of jury members, and nobody wanted to cross Jim Miller.
Where was he from originally?
Well, he was in Pecos for a while. They thought before all this was happening, back when, they thought he's a pretty tough guy. We'll make him a deputy.
Oh, boy.
They made him a deputy, and then he tried to kill the sheriff out there.
Oh, gosh.
But
He just seems like a real, like, sadist, like, real sociopath. Like,
oh, he was.
Yeah.
But he worked at being a straight guy. He married, let's see, who was it down there in El Paso? The fellow that got shot. Oh, I can't think of his name right now. But anyway, he married his sister, and he would go to church and sit in the church. Look, and they even called him Deacon Jim Miller. He wanted to put on, you know, a good
show.
like
good
a
show.
real manipulator, you know, like he could
Yeah.
turn on the charisma, it
Got
sounds
away
like.
with a lot.
Right.
Wow.
He did, and he always had alibis, like being in the hotel here in Cruces. Oh no, he was sitting in the I saw him sitting in the lobby there in Las Cruces. He couldn't have done it, you know, but he did. They gave him a horse, and he went out there at the right time, shot Pat Garrett, came back and sat in the lobby. But
He sat in the lobby to be seen.
yeah, to be
Yeah.
on the line. I've been here the whole time, you know.
Right.
And so they went up there and killed the sheriff of Ada, Oklahoma, and put him in jail, and it looked like he was going to get away with it again. So the citizens formed a vigilante committee, went and pulled him and his henchmen out of jail, and took him over and lynched him.
Wow.
And there's a picture of them as they're hung, you know, as they're hanging there. So that's Jim Miller. Nobody's have you ever heard of Jim Miller?
No.
Nobody's ever heard of him. He's really bloodthirsty. So that happened, and now we got to get back to the ranch.
But you had some really interesting neighbors at that ranch.
Oh yeah. See, we had Bill Isaacs on the west. Jess Isaacs was the former owner. Then we have the Coxes to the south. I've already kind of said, you know, that some of the events between Garrett and the Coxes. The Coxes even had a couple of Hollywood, believe it or not, way back when, I think they were silent movies out there at the Cox Ranch that Hollywood put on, you know.
Oh, cool.
Nobody knows about that.
No.
Much about this is Hal Cox. I knew Hal Cox. This is W.W. Cox's son.
Okay.
And I knew him and was pretty close to him. When they took the ranches over, it just killed him almost. He died very soon, as did one of the Luceros. One of the Luceros had a heart attack and died right there.
Wow.
But
So
We heard-
these
Sorry, go
sorry,
ahead.
so these ranches were where or near where White Sands Missile Range is now, and so they were taken over, I'm assuming, by like eminent domain type of thing.
yes,
Okay.
they took they didn't take Bill Isaacs, and they didn't take some of the Coxes, but they took us and the Luceros all the way up to Socorro. There are about 95 families. that they took the ranches away from them. If we have time, I could even tell you a little bit about that. But we'll go around. We have Cox. We've mentioned him. He was the ranch to the south, kind of. And some of the land they let the Coxes keep. And one of the Coxes is living out there right now, I think. And so Garrett was right on the border of our ranch. Our ranch goes from, do you know where? Okay, the NASA site is at our gate. And Bill Isaacs had a spring. They built the NASA site on top of that. It was a tea garden spring right there where the NASA site is.
NASA, so on the Las Cruces side of the mountain.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. We came to the desert on the Cruces side, starting with the mountains going up, and went all the way across the mountains, Bear Mountain, Bear Canyon, all the way to the other side, to the desert on the other side. And the Luceros were over there on that side. And let's see, the Luceros, as you probably already know, Jose Lucero and Felipe Lucero were sheriffs here in Las Cruces for a while.
We did a podcast on
Jose?
No, we did a podcast on Cricket Kugler.
Ovita Kugler, yeah.
Yeah, Ovita Kugler, and he was the sheriff at the time.
Right.
Oh, the murder. It was a murder.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I remember that.
So you're kind of tying in a lot of information for us.
Yeah, and
Oh,
we've done a podcast on Billy the Kid. So we talked about Pat Garrett quite a bit in that podcast. So yeah, we're tying in a lot of things today. Yeah.
And speaking of tying in, who was A.B. Fall and what was his relationship with Albert Fountain?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the
I can tell you
fountain.
some of that in a minute.
Okay.
So let's see, where are we? We were talking about the Coxes.
And the Luceros.
And the Luceros were on the east side of us. They were down in kind of the desert, the plains. And they also, I don't know where they got the goats, whether it was some of the goats from Wayne, Brazil or what. But they were on today it's called Goat Mountain. I mean, if you look on a map, it's probably, you see it listed as Goat Mountain. And they had the bighorn sheep up there. And the Luceros ran goats up there. I think they were mohair goats. And we'd ride up there, and they were there in about 1918, around in there, 1918. And even so, I think we had a horse that was a descendant of one of their horses.
Wow.
And he was pretty wild. We couldn't put shoes on him, and we had to rope him to get him to where we could saddle him. And but the Luceros had goats up there, and they had a little rock cabin and a rock shed. We went in there once and lifted the tent up. I mean, there were rattlesnakes that sounded like they were going to take the building down. But anyway, I have some of the artifacts from that building. I mean, they just walked off and left them. I got an old rusty rifle of theirs and a cooking pot and some things like that. And that house, unless somebody's torn it down, is still there on Goat Mountain. And it was built according to the the San Andres architecture. Do you know what San Andres architecture is?
No.
Mud and rocks. Almost every building up there, part of our ranch house was mud and rocks. The Lucero's place on Goat Mountain was mud and rocks. The old rock house up there was mud and rocks. That is still there. The
I think when you drive up, I think you could see a couple of kind of very old kind of just ruins of houses that are just rock. They look like they're just rock houses.
Where's that?
When you're driving up Highway 70, going up the mountain.
That may be, but that's not on our
Yeah,
place.
yeah.
But it's just mud and rocks, probably. Anyway, so you have the Luceros running the goats up there, and we would go up there quite a bit. In the wintertime, some of our horses would go up there because we didn't use the horses as much in the winter as we did in the spring and summer and so forth. And so some of our horses would go up on Goat Mountain, and we'd have to go up there and bring them back down, and kind of tame them down, and they were all furry. But that was up there and the Luceros. Well, you said A.B. Fall, right? Okay. He's kind of a historical character. He had a gold mine. I don't know whether you know that.
No.
He had a gold mine there at the end of Bear Canyon, which is on our place. And it's called Sunall, A.B. Fall. And he was kind of in the group where you have A.B. Fall, Oliver Lee, A.B. Fall, Oliver Lee, W.W. Cox, a couple of others there. Then you had the other side where you have Fountain, and this on the opposite fighting side, Yankees and Confederates. Oliver Lee and them were Confederates. Fountain and his group were
The Yankees.
Yankees. I mean, literally, really. And so let's see. A.B. Fall became an attorney, and he defended. Before the Pat Garrett thing, he defended Oliver Lee. Oliver Lee was supposed to have murdered Fountain. Oliver Lee and Jim Gilliland were supposed to have murdered Fountain. So A.B. Fall was pretty shifty. He was pretty smart. And he got Oliver Lee and Gilliland off. I don't think they killed Fountain. I think whoever killed him was hired. I think it was a hired killer. Maybe even Jim Miller. I think he was around at that time too. But
I got to look up this Jim Miller guy.
well, they had him on TV. What, American History or something? They had him on there.
They did, huh?
Did you see it?
No.
Oh. But that's about the only. I mean, nobody. You say Jim Miller? I never heard of him.
No.
Never heard of him. Okay, now where were we? A.B. Fall. And A.B. Fall defended Oliver Lee and them on the Fountain case. Fountain had gone to Lincoln and took his son, and there was antagonism. These are two groups that they're very kind of antagonistic. A.B. Fall defends Oliver Lee for killing, and it's kind of there's a whole story there. I mean, Pat Garrett was after Oliver Lee to catch him, and Oliver Lee was on the dodge. He grew a beard and was going around, stayed at the ranch out. Let's see, out there it was the author, Eugene Manlove Rhodes. I don't know whether, have you ever heard of him?
No.
Never heard of him?
No.
One of the famous authors of this area?
No, never.
Say his name again?
Eugene Manlove Rhodes. He had a ranch up there. His grave is up there at Rhodes Pass. Oliver Lee stayed with Rhodes up there a while. He's written books. He wrote for the Saturday Evening Post. He wrote several books. They turned one of those books into a movie, and it's called Four Faces West. Talks about Pat Garrett and all these things. If you can get the movie, I think it's Four Faces West. And so they made a movie of Gene Rhodes, one of his books. And he wrote several books, several stories. You find them over there and probably in the New Mexico State Library, maybe in the city library. I don't know. Gene Rhodes, but his ranch is up there, and Oliver Lee was hiding out there, and Garrett and Lee even came face to face at one time, but Garrett didn't recognize him because of the beard and all that. But Garrett said, "I'm going to kill him if I see him on the spot." Gosh, I'm going to get into all kinds of history here. Had the fight at the Wildly Well, where Garrett was going to take Oliver Lee in. Fight at the Wildly Well, and Oliver Lee and Gilliland were sleeping on the roof. And Garrett and his posse came up, and we were going to surprise him. He was inside. They went inside. The only one inside was one of Lee's hands. But they woke up, and a gunfight ensued. And I mean, they were shooting around, and Lee said, "My boys are coming here pretty quick. I'll let you leave here. I will not shoot. You'll have free passage out if you leave." And so they left. But one man was wounded, but he died of blood poisoning on the posse side. He died of blood poisoning at the time. And let's see. I wasn't even going to put that in. You only give me that short time. Let's see. Where are we? A.B. Fall. Anyway, he was also the attorney for Wayne Brazil. Got him on that half-day trial and 20-minute whatever. It was A.B. Fall.
So he was a little shady.
Well, I don't know. He became, I think, a senator in the New Mexico legislature from here. He became Assistant Secretary of the Interior for the entire United States. Oh, wow. And from New Mexico, they picked him from New Mexico, and that's where he got involved in oil leases of the Teapot Dome. And there were other people involved, but he took the he was the sole one. You can go ahead. I'll take the blame for the whole thing. So they called him the Fall Guy.
Exactly.
Have you ever heard that before?
I did, yeah.
That's where
I read about that.
That's where it came from.
That's amazing.
The Fall Guy. The Fall Guy, because A.B. Fall took the fall. And anyway, he was here. Had a gunfight in the streets of Las Cruces at one time. But gosh, I'm getting off the...
No, it's okay. These are good.
Yeah,
this is good stories. Yeah.
Shot this guy in the arm, A.B. Fall did. And the guy left town, I think. That was into that. But, you know, I told about the two sides. I mean, there was conflict all along. It wasn't just like, I don't like you, I'm going to shoot you. I mean, there's a war going on, kind of. And so that was A.B. Fall. Then we had the Luceros. And then down from the Lucero farm up there on Goat Mountain is a spring called San Nicolas Spring, Little San Nicolas. There are cliffs going up on each side, 1,000 feet, and crevices and everything. This Little San Nicolas Spring, there's one of those little rock houses there. We used to call it the Rustler's Cabin. And I don't know who it belonged to. But the cavalry watered their horses there as they were going up to fight Victorio at the Battle of the Embrio Basin up there north of our place. And I think up in, maybe they're still doing it, West Point sends their graduates up there to study the tactics.
Oh, okay.
On the... I had a friend of mine was out there with a metal detector, and he plotted out where the shells were and all that kind of stuff. And also he went up and kind of checked around and stuff on whether there's no bullet in the wall there at the courthouse, Lincoln Courthouse. He checked on that. But that doesn't mean there wasn't one. Somebody could have dug it out. But so they watered their horses there, and one of Fountain's horses, which had blood on the back of it, was found at that spring. And my opinion is that those murderers took Fountain and the boy. He had his boy with him. Took him on that horse up to the San Nicolas Spring and disposed of the bodies up there. I mean, they could drop them down in one of those crevices and you'd never find them.
Yeah.
Which was one of the things that helped in the trial over there. No bodies. He could be in New York. But so they could drop them down those crevices. That was San Nicolas Spring. And the cliffs on every side, you know. And we went there several times. We found a bighorn sheep dead down there one time, and we thought, oh gosh, they're going to say we killed it. We didn't do it. We didn't do it.
Yeah.
But
Nobody was ever found guilty, or
No.
No. It's still a mystery.
well, supposedly, I mean,
Right.
we know what happened.
Right. But technically, it's unsolved.
Right.
Yeah, technically
Gotcha.
unsolved.
But yeah, I think most people know what happened. Happened there, and it was kind of a dirty deal. I mean, why kill this kid, you know?
Right.
But I gave a program on that and went through the entire process of Fountain leaving his wife and going to Lincoln and what happened in Lincoln and these outriders trailing him back down, you know, and he set himself up. He should have been smart enough not to do that.
Right. He was prosecuting
In
Lincoln, right?
He was prosecuting Oliver Lee. I mean, put it all together.
Right.
He was headed back to Cruces with warrants for the arrest of Oliver Lee, and if they hadn't followed through, Lee would have gone to jail at least for a time, and lost his livelihood, the ranch, and everything else. Put it, you know, what's going on here?
Right.
Yeah.
Anyway, and so that's A.B. Fall had that mine there, and who knows? He may have been sitting there when Fountain was
Right.
murdered.
Yeah.
Who knows? Leon Metz. You ever heard of Leon Metz? No. He went up there and investigated a lot of that. You know, what happened there. And A.B. Fall was around. They didn't know whether he was there or not when Fountain was murdered. But I ain't even tell you where they murdered him in.
You know what I want to ask you? I want to ask you about when the government came in and took the land.
That's a whole different story. We got another hour. During World War II, the Tularosa Basin was turned into a bombing range. The ranchers agreed to it. We're going to be patriotic. We're helping the country out. You can use our ranches as bombing ranges, which was the way it was. At the end of World War II, the Germans were working with V-2 rockets. And when they lost, we had V-2 rockets going from Albuquerque on the train. V-2 rockets and V-2 rocket parts going from Albuquerque all the way here to Las Cruces. We have a bombing range. Let's go ahead and start working there. And so they developed, what was it called? White Sands Proving Ground. And started working with the V-2 rockets. Those things weighed 5,000 pounds. And they started shooting them. And they said, we lease the land from these ranchers. We're going to rent the land. So they rented it from us for 20 years. we'll pay you rent for 20 years. And so they shot the rockets up. We'd watch them go up the contrail and hear the motors, you know, and then it stops. Okay, where's it coming down? We had one of them hit about half mile from the house.
Oh gosh.
And so, anyway, the V2s were going. They even had one going to El Paso. Juarez. Had one of them going, land in the graveyard in Juarez.
Wow.
Luckily, it landed in the graveyard rather than hitting in the town. So we rented it for 20 years with the lease. They came in at the end of 20 years and got all the ranchers out at White Sands and said, "We've been paying rent on this land for 20 years. We're taking it over. Get off." And we did not rent to own. And they say, "Well, we've been making payments." No, that's rent money, you know. But so they came in and said, "We're taking over," and kicked us off. Well, and the lease had that they would put on another 20-year renewal. We were waiting for that. No, they didn't do that. They didn't put on the new 20-year renewal. Just get off. And they started kicking us all off. It was a mean situation. And they shot some of the livestock.
Oh, boy.
And did not help us in any way whatsoever. And like with Hal Cox, on his place, his cows, a lot of them were calving. And they came in and kicked him off when those cows were calving, you know. And it's kind of, they don't like me to talk, I don't think.
I'm not going to stop you, so.
So anyway, they took it over.
Was there any payment made?
Yeah, they supposedly bought it from us
Oh, okay.
at less than 20% of the value.
Oh gosh.
Less than 20%.
Not even fair market value, just
No.
gosh.
See, and the Constitution says the right of eminent domain with just compensation. With just compensation. They didn't give us just compensation. Well, it was a steal is what it was. And then they got feeling guilty, I guess, later on, supposedly Congress gave us a little stipend, $5,000 or so.
Wow.
The ranch, well, anyway, so that's that. And we had to go up and clean the furniture off because they weren't protecting it. People were breaking in and stealing our furniture and things. And I have a whole program on that, but
Did people lose their entire ranch?
yeah.
I thought it was just portions of it were.
Well, the Coxes lost just portions, but we lost all of it. Lucero's lost all of it. Going all the way up to Socorro, they lost all of it. About 95 families.
Wow.
And
Did anybody bring it to court?
we had lawyers, attorneys from the time they kicked us off up until 1990, I think, or in the 1990s. We went to the Congress of the United States. We went before the Supreme Court.
Wow.
The Supreme Court said that the state land was in co-ownership between us and the state of New Mexico. And they gave the land that they made up for New Mexico, they gave them fine forest and pasture land. They didn't give us anything.
Wow.
They gave us nothing. And so anyway, I've been up there. They've taken me up there and I've talked, made a video and stuff. And my son made a documentary of me. Have you heard about that one?
No, tell me.
On, was it KRWG? What?
The grandson.
Grandson. What did I say? Son?
Son. Feels like a son.
My grandson.
And what's your grandson's name?
Owen Courier, and he's up in Albuquerque. He's finishing high school up there in Albuquerque. Now, where were we?
He made a documentary about you.
He made a documentary about me and the ranch up there. It won first place in the state of New Mexico.
Bravo.
And he went to Washington to show it, but they're not too interested in things happening out here, you know. But they showed it on KRWG,
Very good.
and that was really interesting.
Yeah, yeah. So speaking about interesting, I found a couple of things in the vault.
Okay,
I focused on the Cox family,
okay,
and I found the deed where Davies sold to Cox in 1893. Davies was the previous owner to Cox. So I thought that was kind of cool. It's handwritten.
that is. That's
yeah.
interesting. I never knew who he bought it from.
Yeah, somebody Davies.
He was living in a cave out there for a while, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
huh? I also found in 1925 the patent signed by Calvin Coolidge for James W. Cox.
James, not W.W. Cox?
It says James W. Cox.
And what's the patent for? Does it say?
It's a patent for land. It gives a legal description for
It's
the
out
land.
here?
Yeah.
Well, he's in there somewhere, I guess.
Yeah, huh? And
They had several Coxes, I think, as they did Isaac's.
right. And then I found also that the Farm and Ranch Museum has a nice website, and they had the White Sands Control Center was named after J.W. Cox.
Okay.
And Rob Cox.
Oh, that's Rob, isn't it?
Well, Rob Cox was one of the founding members of the Farmer.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So I thought that was kind of fun to
They
see.
had us demonstrated there for a while. They had a little program called Ranches to Rockets.
Oh,
Did you ever go out there and see that?
no.
Ranches to Rockets, and we were one of the ranches that they had on demonstration there. And they have now moved it up to Santa Fe, and it's on exhibit up in Santa Fe.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From here, at the Farm and Ranch Museum here.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Well, Mr. Owens, this has been a really fun podcast. We love history here in our office. And so we just want to say thank you for joining us and for giving us some really, really cool stories. And now Bern has so much more to go and research. But this has been a really, really great conversation. Thank you to your wife for bringing, for joining us as well. If you want to learn more, we're going to post a lot of information on our podcast so you can learn more. We're going to post links to the documentaries, to the stories. I'm sure we could find the books. And so you'll find all that information on our website and on the podcast, in the podcast details. I want to thank Jacob Slaughter, who's behind camera today, our producer and editor. I also want to thank Cynthia Mendoza, our communication coordinator. Thank you, Bern Caporal, our producer and researcher. My name is Caroline Zamora. I'm the Chief Deputy County Clerk. Thank you for joining us today. And thank you again to Mr. Owens for joining us and giving us all this history.
Well, I'm going for another 2 or 3 hours.
I know, but unfortunately,
Part 2.
I know we'll have to have a part 2. Unfortunately, we don't have the batteries for this. But thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah,
This
it was
was
my
a real pleasure.
pleasure.
Thank you. Be sure to follow us on all of our social medias, and be sure to subscribe to our podcast wherever you listen: Spotify, Apple, Libsyn, iHeart Podcasts, on YouTube, and we'll see you next time.